Hello and welcome to this event in the Orkney Aviation Festival 2022. I'm Dave Gray and I'm going to be your webinar chair for this event. And today we're going to be listening to a couple of speakers who are going to be speaking about why sustainable aviation is bringing profound change. Now, we're going to be hearing from David Holden, who's a Sustainable Aviation Manager for HIAL, that's Highlands and Islands Airports Limited, and Dougie Cook, who's the North Airports Manager for HIAL. Now, SATE, Sustainable Aviation Test Environment, provides the blueprint for net zero regional aviation, placing the UK at the forefront of the transition to low-carbon aviation. The project will provide an important step towards delivering HIAL's ambitions to decarbonise operations by 2040. Now, David and Dougie will give us an overview of SATE, SATE, based at Kirkwall Airport, and how the project has progressed so far, as well as looking to the future. And hopefully we'll have time for questions later on. So if you have any questions, just make a note of them or keep them in mind, and we can deal with them after the webinar has finished, after David and Dougie have finished speaking, rather. So I should now just hand over to David Holden and to Dougie Cook for the night or today's webinar. Thanks, folks.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for the opportunity to come and speak about SATE, the Sustainable Aviation Test Environment today. As Dave said, I am Dougie Cook. I'm General Manager North, which means that I am in charge of John O'Groats Airport, but I also have oversight for Kirkwall Airport up in Orkney. And that's the reason that I am involved in the Sustainable Aviation Test Environment. I came and spoke to the festival last year, and spoke about some of the things that we were planning to achieve as part of what was SATE at the time. It's now turned out that it was SATE Phase 1. And I'm glad to say that I'm back this year and I'm able to report that we achieved at least 90% of what we set out to do in the 18-month period. So I'll give you a little bit of overview about what we achieved during the 18 months of SATE 1 and what's next as part of SATE 2. Next slide, please. We're going to play you a short video now. It lasts about 4 minutes. You can watch it live stream, but it will be fairly low resolution, unfortunately. You will be able to obtain a link on the Science Festival website, and that will give you a better resolution. Sorry folks, we seem to have hit a small technical snag.
SATE is the UK's first low-carbon aviation test centre to be located at a commercial airport. It's based at Highlands and Islands Airports Limited's Kirkwall Airport in the Orkney Islands. A range of exciting technologies are being explored, including low-carbon aircraft such as hybrid electric and hydrogen, as well as the use of synthetic aviation fuels. Unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, are also being trialled, demonstrating real-life service demands to connect communities. As an early adopter of other low-carbon technologies, Orkney is an ideal living laboratory for testing aviation technology, offering a real-world environment with harsh weather and inter-island routes.
Orkney was the ideal place to set up this environment. There's a few reasons for that, not least of which is the buy-in from a local community. People in Orkney are really excited around renewables and sustainability. Hopefully one of the benefits of this long term will be that we manage to improve connectivity as well.
Technologies range in scale, from the smallest drones to commercial passenger planes. Airport infrastructure supporting the development of sustainable aviation testing has also been put in place. A large, purpose-built hangar fitted with charging points gives ample space for multiple aircraft and technology teams. At over 30 metres long, it can easily accommodate wingspans of up to 20 metres. Dedicated on-site offices are well equipped with super-fast broadband, offering a meeting and work space for technology developers.
Windracer's Ultra UAS is a twin-engine aircraft, uncrewed aircraft, that is capable of carrying 100 kilograms payload at a distance of 1,000 kilometers. It's been specially designed for transporting aid and for logistical transport in rough conditions, in unprepared runways, any environment really. It is very important for us to be able to have this test environment. We have a hangar here where we can store and do maintenance to our aircraft. We have some offices here where we can have our ground control station, where we can have all our communications equipment, so we can get our stuff ready and basically test it once we have the opportunities and the weather windows to do it. For us, it is vital to have this kind of facilities where we can come test in a safe environment, in a controlled environment.
SATE provides the blueprint for net zero regional aviation, placing the UK at the forefront of the transition to low carbon flight.
Rural communities like Orkney, aviation is absolutely vital. It's their communications, it's their connection to the outside world. And we have to do our bit as aviation promoters to be as environmentally friendly as we can. SATE gives us the opportunity to look at all these different technologies and how they integrate into the future transportation system. So it's vital that we be as green as we can and reduce our carbon footprint.
For HIAL, Sustainable Aviation Test Environment is the first step to a wider goal of decarbonising aviation in the north of Scotland and the islands.
SATE, providing a test centre to accelerate the industry towards net zero, where blue skies become a little bit greener.
As you can see by the short piece that we had there, you saw some of our partners that delivered some of our trials. You also see that we did achieve to build the test environment that we had talked about. So the infrastructure that's been put in place it's designed to try and maximize the amount of partners that we can invite up to Orkney to carry out trials. So there is the electric partners who had the first UK hybrid electric flight as part of SATE, the SATE project. We've also got space available for wind racers, which was the unmanned aerial vehicle that was talked about there. But further to that, we're hoping to attract technology partners who will be using hydrogen. And also there's quite a great deal of work that needs to be done in the background around operational support for all of these types of technologies and engagement with the CEA. And what we're hoping is that the test environment that we've built at Kirkwall Airport will allow people to come and test in a safe and controlled manner and build safety cases that can be used then in real world applications at other commercial airports and then expand throughout HIAL's own group. So the plan was to deliver sustainable transportation and economic growth throughout all 11 of our airports that you can see on the screen there. And that is to get a net zero regional airport group by 2040. Demonstrate future technologies and potential applications, which we've already done as part of SATE 1, and understand future airport infrastructure and energy requirements. And that then kind of leads into what I was speaking about with the operations and how much fuel do they require, how much segregation do they need special firefighting systems, and it just asks a whole lot of questions that can be done in a safe and controlled way to find the answers. Next slide, please. So as part of the infrastructure, what you can see there is a RUB hangar, and it is capable of housing 2 Dornier 228 aircraft. Charging facilities for electric hybrids, as you can see on the left hand of the screen there, and offices. So all of these partners require quite an amount of technological and IT input, as you would imagine. So the offices are purpose-built for partners to come and test, record the results, transfer their data, and understand what they've gained out of their tests and maybe what the next step of their testing is going to be. As you can see, wind racers there as well, the unmanned aerial vehicle was housed in the SATE hangar, and they carried out operations from Orkney over to the mainland to John O'Groats Airport, and then onward to the Orkney Islands, and then up towards the Shetland Islands as well. Very successful flight testing as part of SATE 1. Next slide, please. I mean, so SATE Flight 1 routes was from Wick to Kirkwall and then over Ede, North Royalty, Fairisle, Unst, Tingwall, and wind racers started their trials in September 21 until October 21, and then the Shetland trials were in March and April 2022. And wind racers was incredibly successful. And if you go on to different websites, you'll see that they carried out trials for the Royal Mail. So real world use case at the end of their trials. On the left-hand side, you can see Ampere, as I said, the first electric hybrid flight in the UK, Wick to Kirkwall. And that you can see there is a sort of closeout for them in August 2021 after they had had their successful trials. I think it's safe to say that both of these partners learned a lot about what's required to fly up in and around Orkney. I mean, they had requested to come up and fly in a harsh weather environment, and that's really what they did, and it stretched their technology as they wanted to do. What we're looking for at the end of this is we're looking to increase connectivity and help people. That's really what we're here for. HIAL as an organisation at the 11 airports provide a lot of lifeline services in fragile economies in some cases. And what we really want to do is provide value to the people in the communities that we serve, and see if we can improve the way of life by increasing connectivity or delivering products or mail or whatever it needs to be, and to try just really to add value. It's all very well having all of these fantastic new technological advances, but really there needs to be an end user, and that is the people in the communities that we serve, we hope. Next slide, please. These are the people that was involved in the SATE consortium. So what you've got is Highlands and Islands Airports, the lead partner. And we were partnered by University of Highlands Islands and will be again going forward. Our platform partners for the next one will be Zero Avia, hydrogen hybrid aircraft, and Wind Racers will be returning for SATE 2. Infrastructure enabling partners, we've got a couple of different partners this time. Arcadis have come on board, and they are looking at dissemination and end use case, and as I said, how can we use this technology to genuinely make people's lives better. We've also got Catapult Connected Places that are involved this time and weren't involved as part of SATE Part 1. Loganair are working with us again as a partner, as are HiTrans and EMIC. And there'll be a lot of work done this time around hydrogen aircraft, hydrogen infrastructure. What does it look like? How does it integrate into our airfields? Self-funded partners are pretty much as before. Orkney Islands Council, Shetland Islands Council, the Highland Council, Highlands and Islands Enterprise, and Adelshaw Goddard, who are a law firm. So who are the end users that we're speaking about? Who do we hope to affect at the end of SATE 2? Royal Mail, we hope, will partner with us again. NHS are very interested in how medical supplies may be delivered more efficiently using a few different delivery packages. Nature Scotland, Orkney Food and Drink, and Streamline, they've all expressed an interest in how can our testing help them with some of the challenges that they face in their businesses. And the underpinning assets that we have this time is that we now have the infrastructure, it is in place, and really what we're looking to do now is like expand on it. Wind Racers already have their drone and they've made improvements to it to see if they can make it better, and that's a direct result of the testing that they did in Orkney in phase 1. And Zero Avia with their Dornier 228, as I mentioned, the SATE site was built to house 2 Dornier 228s, and the apron area in front of it can house another 2. And we've got the HiTrans truck that you can see there in the bottom right. So what we're hoping for is, at the end of this, zero carbon aviation. And the trials as part of SATE 1 they've proved a big success, and what that has meant is that we have been awarded by UKRI another round of funding as Future Flight Challenge Phase 2. So SATE 2 kicked off in July of this year. And the aim is to build on our achievements and continue our journey to decarbonise aviation industry in our region. All of these aircraft that you see testing here are, by their design, going to be low emission aircraft, which will hopefully drive down the cost to the end user at the end of the day, because they will use less energy and therefore require less fuel. Next slide, please. Wind Racers, as I spoke about, is one of our partners, and they're using the unmanned aviation vehicle. And what they want to do now is expand on the successes that they had as part of SATE 1. Initially, what we're planning to do is, in the Orkney Isles, have a hub in Kirkwall and spokes out to Ede, North Royalsea, Pata, Westray. And then as next phase, move up the Shetland Islands with a hub in Tingwall and spokes out to Unst, Fairroyal and Fulla. And what that'll be doing is delivering goods and services out to these smaller islands, which Royal Mail will be involved in, and delivering stuff in just a more efficient way, we're hoping, with less of a carbon footprint and a better connectivity. The plan is then to move to Inverness with a spoke out to Stornoway, Benbecula and Barra, and that's the same. That's to give the same opportunities out to the west coast, and then gather all the data from all of these trials and just see what the practicalities are going forward of having hub and spoke unmanned aerial vehicles operating in and around the north of Scotland and the Western Isles. And then, as a direct result of a request from the NHS Scotland, a delivery from Inverness to Hamilton, which is where the NHS hub is. And that, of course, then will feed on to how NHS can be involved in what could be a hub and spoke out to a lot of different places. The plan, and it is ambitious, is to have a Norway showcase event connecting Kirkwall and Bergen, and that's towards the end of our trials in spring 2024. Next slide, please. I'll hand you over now to David Holden, who's going to speak about next steps, really.
Thanks, Dougie. Hello, everybody. My name is David Holden. I'm the Sustainable Innovation Manager for the SATE project. And I wanted to place the project in the context of the wider opportunity and really try to maybe answer some of the questions of what we can expect and hope to see as a result of all this activity in sustainable aviation. In the industry, it's very much known as the third revolution. So the first revolution is kicked off by the Wright brothers. The second revolution, really in the UK, kicked off by the jet engine. And the third revolution is very much the transition to sustainable aviation. Underpinning the transition is the requirement for aviation to decarbonise. This is a requirement, a societal requirement, and it's an urgent action that's needed in a particular transport mode that is recognised as difficult to decarbonise. So a huge amount of effort is being mobilised across the industry to look at how the industry can decarbonise. And I put up on this slide just a few of the reports that have landed on my desk and are publicly available for those interested in the subject. And you will see real research tones and strategy papers and positioning papers and ideas really landing every day, and big pieces of work as we try to figure out the pathway to making aviation more sustainable, but also what are the opportunities that will become apparent in this journey. I say up front that the hope is that aviation will follow a slightly different path to that of other modes of transport. And by that, I mean, if you replace your car today with an electric car tomorrow, you will most likely make the same journey, albeit with a completely different and lower carbon footprint. If tomorrow you catch an electric train rather than a diesel train, a diesel powered train, you'll probably make the same journey, but again, maybe without even realizing you're on an electric train with a reduced carbon footprint. Aviation is different to some of the other modes of transport in that by moving the technology to a lower cost platform and different types of innovative platforms, aviation, as I hope to show you in a moment, may answer and may meet a considerably wider series of challenges that we have today and offer both increased capacity and capability to the connectivity challenges that we have, particularly those in the regions of the Highlands and Islands. Can I go to the next slide, please? So, of course, we all love our infographics. And one infographic that we tried to produce was to just picture some of the elements of what the phrase around delivering the regional aviation system of the future might mean and will mean. And at the center of that is community connectivity. And that's the catchphrase really for more aeroplanes flying more often on more routes, so that we have greater options of how to travel and when we travel. Of course, that's only possible if the ticket prices are affordable and if the cost base is available and the machinery is available to actually fly those routes. But that's the potential of sustainable aviation. One of the big changes in sustainable aviation is the potential cost of hydrogen or electric fuel cells and electric airplanes, where the cost could reduce significantly to a position where aviation becomes a much more common and much more usable and accessible mode of transport. And as I'll show in a moment, that is replacing existing routes with more efficient aeroplanes, hopefully flying more often. It is about adding more routes, but as I'll show in a moment, it's also about different ways of aviation adding to the capability to connect both the passengers and freight. So in a regional aviation system, I mean, you have the overarching requirement to reduce carbon emissions, and that can be done in a number of ways, but it includes also the option for an increased use of pilotless aircraft. And you saw on the video that Dougie showed earlier, the Windracer UAS, which has been successfully demonstrated. Talk a bit more about that in a moment, in our region, and offers again a new way potentially of moving freight around the region in a much lower cost with a much lower carbon footprint, and therefore helping us to connect, at least on the freight perspective, all sorts of new opportunities, those that are not necessarily open to us at the moment. The new sustainable aviation needs to be integrated. It needs to be integrated into other forms of transport, but it also needs to be integrated between the different platforms. And we'll show a little bit in a moment some photos of those different platforms, so that airports and potential sites currently not an airport, but are able to, maybe even ports and other nodes, are able to integrate the different forms of sustainable transport that we see emerging. The conventional wisdom, which seems to be playing out at the moment, is that much of the initial deployment of sustainable aviation and of these new aeroplanes will be in the smaller aeroplanes, and therefore in the 9 to 19 seats type market, which means that we should reasonably see the first deployment of these type of zero carbon or low carbon aeroplanes in our geography. And that gives us an opportunity to look at the skills and knowledge that will be required by the industry and take advantage of being an early adopter, a first mover advantage, if you like, to start to grow those local skills and knowledge locally and become a center for the development of that. So in the same way, we're looking to test novel technologies, demonstrate their viability. We also want to see them deployed into service soonest in our region for our benefit, and that also means growing both the local skills and knowledge base. Another one up on this slide, which is an interesting conversation for investigation more broadly at the moment, is around the use of airports as community energy hubs. And this is coming because of the new fuels that are going to be required. So in the future, if airfields are going to need to supply electricity for electric aeroplanes, hydrogen for hydrogen aeroplanes, along with sustainable aviation fuels and current traditional fuels, there is the opportunity with the land that we have at airports to potentially use the airport as a base to produce that energy and then to supply communities, local communities, with the energy or some of the surplus energy that is able to be produced. And that's very much on a case-by-case basis and is not applicable to all airfields, but it is something that is being investigated, not just by us, but across the industry. Let me move on to the next slide, please. So a number of people have tried to visualize a little bit what this system will look like in the future. And I'm going to take 2 slides to try and have a go at it, have a bash at it myself. This is actually stealing a slide from UKRI, who are our funding agency for SATE. And they put together this quite detailed slide around how 2030 might look in terms of the use of drones, in terms of what's called advanced air mobility. These are the electric vertical takeoff and landing air taxis that you see being developed. Some were pretty exciting developments. And then the third leg of that is the regional air mobility. So this is the 9 to 19 seat class of aeroplane being refitted with low carbon or zero carbon powertrains, or indeed clean sheet designs in that category, which we can reasonably expect to see in service by 2030. I think there's a number of competing projects to see who might reach service first. And in that, you can see how they're looking at the delivery convenience, reduced congestion, increased consumer choice, reduced journey time, as just some of the benefits that are coming out of the use of this new technology. Underpinning that has to be an increased sustainability as the primary driver for the activity, but also improved accessibility, and also not just benefits, this is a UKRI slide, to the UK economy, but our ability, hopefully locally, to be at the forefront of this with our project so that we can see disproportionate benefits to our own local economy. Kind of begs the question, what will be new in the future? And actually, in this revolution, in this third revolution of aviation, just about everything potentially is new and will be reinvented to some degree. So we're going to have new aircraft. We're going to have, to some degree, autonomous aircraft. We're going to have new infrastructure, as Dougie was mentioning. We'll have new skills. We'll have new fuels. That could produce and should produce new routes, potentially the entry of new operators. Also, re-imaged airports, as well as the development of existing airports. We may well see new small airports, which are open for new aircraft that don't need or have the same requirement as current airfields. And for those of you who are keen on the subject, you'll see a lot of interest on the vertiports, and these are designed for the air taxi vehicles and most likely based in high density urban environments. All of this brings lower zero carbon footprint to aviation, which is a requirement of the industry. But overall, it's not about replacing existing routes only with lower carbon emitting aircraft. It's about potentially a much larger role for aviation in the future. And that's what's exciting for us. And that's, I think, the primary driver why this project gives us an opportunity to be at the sharp end of this change. Next slide, please. Just to throw up a few photos around what this might look like, and it's by no means attempting to be completely exhaustive. And you can see some of the technology that looks quite futuristic, but is really here or about to be here very shortly. And everything on this slide could be, and most likely will be, operational before the end of the decade. And they all fill a different niche and with a different opportunity to improve on our connectivity and improve, as I said earlier, on the capacity and the capability of the system to bring some real solutions, particularly to some of the challenges that we have around connecting in the Highlands and Islands. Just to give you a quick overview for those not familiar with the photos. So on the left there, what I call short finals, are the 3 test partners which have actually joined us and we've seen and tested at SATE. So you have the hybrid electric Ampere aircraft, you have the hydrogen fueled Zero Avia aeroplane, and that particular aeroplane you see in the photograph, we hope to see doing demonstration flights in the end of 2023, early 24, and you see the Wind Racer drone. In the middle column, you see some technology which is now proven to a degree, or actually already been flown, and has attracted large amount of investment capital, and are projects which are well established and we would expect to see in service very shortly. And you see at the top, you see hybrid air vehicles, Airlander 10. That's a photograph of the prototype, which flew, actually, I think it's the 10th anniversary of that flight this month. So you can see how long it takes to bring some of this technology to market. But this is a potentially very exciting vehicle, possibly, well, not possibly, by far the highest payload, lowest emitting, carbon emitting footprint aircraft, probably for the next 10, 15 years. The payload of 10 tons with 75% less emissions than a comparable aeroplane. So very interesting to look at. The second one you see there is Vertical's eVTOL aircraft, electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, being built and being soon to be flown, the prototypes to be flown actually out of Bristol, with the opportunity to serve potentially initially high density urban locations, but potential also, I think, for rural application. 4 to 6 seaters, and increasingly lowering the cost to make it more accessible to a mass transit type operation than its initial image as a platform for only the rich and famous. And then a couple more there just to pick out. You see there Faraday's 19-seat concept aeroplane. You see Vildero and their Heart, Technam, sorry, not Heart, their Technam P-Volt electric aeroplane. And then on the right-hand side, you see a more diverse group of technology. You see Arc Aerosystems e-Starling, which was, which is in design, another eVTOL craft, but as a smaller version, a potential use as an autonomous drone, again for freight operations. You see underneath an exciting clean sheet design by Cormorant, who are looking to build a fully sustainable aeroplane, and where the production is of a wooden aeroplane using a hydrogen electric propulsion unit, and having capability not just to land on normal airports, but also with an amphibious capability, a 9-seat aircraft. And then below that, you see the emerging high payload drones, some VTOL drones, where we can start to imagine 100, 200, 400 kilogram payloads being moved by eVTOL drones, which again would bring a remarkably exciting new opportunity for moving goods around the Highlands and Islands. The last one I wanted just to pick out there, which is quite an interesting one, on the right-hand side, which has got the Brittany Ferries logo on, is a company, an American company called Regent Sea Gliders, who already have scale models in test. And that is an aeroplane, and I have to put in inverted commas, that flies within the ground effect of a normal aeroplane, and allows the craft to operate amphibiously, operate also as a hydroplane, and then lift off and operate within 50 feet or so of the ground, or in this case of the water. And because of its configuration, it is actually, whilst looking like an aeroplane and driven by electric aviation motors and with amphibious capability, it is probably, or it is viewed at the moment to be certified actually as a ship, which brings in a whole new possibilities for how aviation in general can operate between the different modes of transport. But again, if we had, and this is still very much in development, a 50-seat sea glider that is capable of operating in our conditions, then again, it could open up all sorts of opportunities and connections. So that's just a sort of a visual of the different types of solutions that sustainable aviation is starting to bring to the fore, and the different niches and different missions and new opportunities that these options could bring us, new benefits that these could bring us. So it is far more than simply substituting with a low carbon footprint engine on the same flight that we do today. It's got the potential to significantly open up the opportunities to us. Okay, next slide, please. I just wanted to quickly touch on hydrogen, because hydrogen is one of the particular energy vectors that is increasingly getting interest and attracting capital from those interested in sustainable aviation. And that's just a graphic from one of our partners, ZeroAvia, around how the system works. In effect, taking renewable energy through the using renewables to produce electricity, to feed into a hydrogen electrolyzer, add water, hydrogen into the tank of the airfield, to the aircraft, and using the hydrogen in an electric fuel cell to produce the thrust, and with the only emission being water vapor. And this is one of the key vectors for the retrofitting and development of new aircraft that is hopefully we'll see even within the lifetime of the SATE project. We hope to see the 19-seat Dornier 228, which is currently being refitted with this arrangement, up in Orkney in, as I said, at the end of 23-24. Next slide, please. And that's very much part of a longer term forecast and vision that the industry has. And this is a particular slide that's well known from ZeroAvia again, where you see the offer and the capability growing over the years. So you see that certainly within the next couple of years, the first commercial offering hopefully becoming available. And this is the 10 to 20 seat Dornier 228 or similar aircraft. Again, aircraft which we probably know quite well in Scotland that operate a number of our regional routes, whether from an Islander to a Twin Otter and others in this class. And you can see how they plan to build up the capability as the power systems get larger. And you can see the sort of timelines that they're looking at. So really, we're into mid-2035, mid-next decade before we see greater than 200 seats, and probably 2040, some might say longer, for the really large intercontinental aircraft. And the current thinking is that they actually will probably be more aligned to liquid hydrogen, that's cryogenic hydrogen that's effectively operating under we need a clean sheet design to be able to operate with the low temperatures that the liquid hydrogen would require. But that's the sort of current conventional wisdom that you see in terms of the rollout of sustainable aviation. And that's not just for hydrogen powertrains, but there would be something similar for electric powertrains. The key thing is, what do we do until we get to 2040 for some of the longer range and mid-range jets? And that will be sustainable aviation fuels. And that will be an improvement on the current carbon footprint. You're talking about reductions of 50 to 75%, but it won't bring the zero emission solutions that hydrogen will bring to the bigger, potentially bring to the bigger aircraft from 2035 or so onwards. Next slide, please. I'm not going to talk through all of this. I'd like to leave some time for some questions. I just wanted to explain that what we're doing in SATE is very much establishing what we believe is the UK Centre of Excellence for Sustainable Regional Aviation. We are at the forefront of what's going on both nationally and internationally. That feeds into, very practically, our desire to have a zero carbon regional system, aviation system in the Highlands and Islands by 2040. And that feeds in again to the overall industry ambitions and gives us a chance to be early adopters and develop ourselves to hopefully take advantage, some commercial advantages of how the aviation industry needs to develop as it rolls out some of the testing and some of the deployment that we will see. Next slide, please. Again, another busy slide, and let you just have a quick look through without touching on everything. It's a very busy slide that says, after 18 months experience running the Sustainable Aviation test environment, we actually do now have quite a compelling value proposition, and we understand the value that we can bring to commercial and technological partners who want to come and test with us based at Kirkwall. And Kirkwall will and is the spiritual centre of the test environment activity, but it is also fair to say that that activity, as you've seen in some of Dougie's slides, is actually expanding out to include other parts of the Highlands and Islands. So we've now got flights really and potential to test applications across the region. And there's not many places that have 20,000 square miles plus of that type of varied geographies, and at least 11 airports, plus the local authority airports within which to test. The other thing that's probably worth saying is we have now developed expertise. So much of the experience we have is unique in the UK, whether that's in air traffic control and how to integrate the drones into an operational airfield, which is the first time it's been done in the UK. And it's certainly the first and longest trips that UAVs have done in the UK. All this valuable experience means that we are able to now deploy some of that expertise, hopefully to a wider benefit. Okay, can I have the next slide, please? So we have developed the capability and credibility because of the proven experience of the last 18 months. And I just wanted to highlight these two, just as a little bit of a pat on the back to Dougie and the team, because there have been some real notable successes in the last 18 months. The first was the Scotland, in fact, the UK's first electric-powered aircraft, hybrid electric aircraft in Ampere. And that article and associated video on the BBC website remains the #1 watched video in Scotland on the BBC platform, which is quite interesting and quite remarkable. And actually not completely lost on some of our technology partners who are quite excited about the interest that the media has shown in the testing activity. The second one on the right shows an announcement made just recently by the Royal Mail about Royal Mail looking to purchase what would be a very large fleet potentially of drones to carry mail throughout the remote UK. And some of that announcement comes on the successful outcome of the test, an extensive, by far the most extensive test that was done up at SATE. So real applications, real capability and credibility. Next slide, please. I think just to end, I wanted just to come back a little bit to Orkney Island Council and some of the partners that have underpinned the success of SATE. And I think just tying it back to the practical use of what comes out of these technology centres. So the test environment is not designed to be a fun place to test that's of sort of academic interest. It really is for us to get ourselves a deeper insight around where is the technology that we can use and deploy early in our communities to our benefit. And that means improving connectivity. It also means what are the commercial opportunities that we might see locally from encouraging or inviting some of the early technology to base themselves in the Highlands and Islands. So inward investment opportunities, and also in opportunities to be at the forefront of some of the skills work and skills development that needs to happen. So it isn't a technology for technology's sake project. It is a project that we hope will bring some early and significant benefits to communities. I think that is the last slide. And with that, happy and delighted to open up to any questions. So back to you, Dave.
Thank you very much, David. And I actually have a start-off question for myself, just to see if, just to get things going. I have 2 or 3 at the side here, but I was interested when you mentioned Orkney Islands Council there. I was interested because obviously the plans that you have here and the work that you're doing has implications for island travel, inter-island travel. And I'm really just wondering, I mean, that could affect the future requirements for ferry provision and that kind of thing. How much integration and joined up thinking and collaboration is going on at the moment between your project and the council, in as much as are they factoring what you're doing into their plans?
So I'm happy to have a go at that first, Dougie. So, I mean, first and foremost, I think we have to recognise that Orkney Island Council have been an extremely enthusiastic member of the team and have been incredibly supportive. So we work closely with them to share the technologies that we see and to show some of the potential of the technologies that have deployed there. Within SATE, I think our hope is that at still early stages that this technology will bring additional opportunities and capability in terms of connectivity to the region and to Orkney specifically. In terms of are we working on an integrated transport plan? That's not my role and that's not what I'm involved in. But hopefully that they will be, as a result of the technologies that we're able to demonstrate, that will start to become more apparent and will eventually factor into the thinking of how it can be deployed locally. Dougie, I don't know if you have anything.
No, I mean that's exactly it, David. It is a collaborative approach, but it's more about recognizing gaps, recognizing challenges, David, and seeing how aviation can fill those gaps or help with those gaps. And that's what SATE is really all about, is partnerships, collaboration, and seeing if aviation can help challenges, but in a sustainable way.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, questions now. If you have a question on YouTube or whatever, you just bung it in the comment section below, then it'll filter its way through here. This question is, the focus of SATE is on regional air services. What's the range of a regional air service? How will it remain cost effective as we reduce the amount of long, short haul and long haul aviation?
I mean, I'll have a stab at that one, David. Yeah, regional aviation from our point of view is as far north as Shetland and as far south probably as Edinburgh, Glasgow. That's what we're basing stuff on. The way it will remain cost effective is through innovation. It's as simple as that. Innovative technologies that'll change the blueprint for aviation, which is at the moment, and then here's probably a fairly good example, is at the moment what used to be called category 3, Cat 3 aircraft, SAB 340s, Jetstream 41s, those types of aircraft are no longer in production. They got phased out in the late 90s. So what we're increasingly finding in aviation, if you come away from the new technologies, is that it is a larger aircraft that is not really suited for our region, which means reduced schedules, increased prices, sometimes even increased emissions. So really what we're looking to do is change that blueprint and give us better connectivity on aircraft that are targeted, and routes that are targeted, schedules that are targeted, and pricing that's targeted. So that is how you make it sustainable going into the future. It's a combination of all of these things put together. I hope that answers it.
Okay, Dougie, yeah, thanks very much. And I kind of follow in for that. How does the cost base or regional decarbonised aviation depend on the infrastructure for bigger scale aviation, things like airfields, air traffic control, etc.?
Yeah, that's another piece of work that we're actually doing is what does the airport in the future look like? David touched on it as well, is do we need the amount of infrastructure that we've got at the moment? Or is the amount of infrastructure that we've got is correct? We just need to use it in a different way. So a big part of SATE 2 is now going to be looking at not just the infrastructure of the airport, but the journey to the airport. How do we decarbonize everything around it? How do we get community buy-in? Is there some other community value that we can get from it, so that it's not just an airport, it's not just infrastructure for an airport, it can be used in some other way? And how can these new technologies and new fuels help with that? So it's an interesting question. I don't have an answer. I doubt if I'll even have an answer in 2 years once we finish. But I think what we're hoping for in 2 years' time is that we will have a better understanding of just exactly that question, which is, what do we need to put in place?
I'll come back and ask you in 2040 if we're both spared.
Yeah.
This next one is kind of slightly linked to the first question in a way. It sounds kind of like it. Is there any work being done to determine what the lowest carbon overall design of transport links to and between Shetland are? Some ferries are very energy intensive. So that would point again to how kind of joined up is the thinking in this project?
I'll have another stab at that. The reason I caveat the answer is this is early days, in the sense that this is emerging technology, and I sort of underlining the point that what we're seeing at Kirkwell is really state-of-the-art stuff. It's stuff that is it's either UK, European, or in some cases even it's a global first. So we really are pathfinders here. So it's most of what we're doing. We are looking to say, well, what are the three things that you're eventually going to, when this is scaled up, what is going to be the carbon footprint versus other modes of transport? What is going to be the cost, and therefore the potential end ticket prices? And what is the feasibility of how long it will take to get to service, and what is the, if you like, the opportunity cost of it being located elsewhere? And that thinking is starting to emerge now, and route planning and route design is very much now a part of the SATE project. So in the next round of the SATE project, we are looking at what will this potential route network of a sustainable regional system look like. So it is all, we are starting to pull it all together. But at the moment, as I think in any series of industries where change is happening so quickly, to say that there is a sort of a seamless integrated view on how it's going to happen, it's just not like that at the moment yet. All we're looking at is there is obvious technology with, at least on paper, real advantages and possibilities, and how can that then be married into a system to make it work better? It's frustrating that it can't happen immediately, but it is happening relatively quickly. I mean, let's come back in 2024 and see, have we got, or how far are we away from a low or zero emission commercial flight in our region? Maybe we already have one, or maybe we're on the cusp of one. And with the other technologies being more advanced, I think the integration question will be more advanced as well.
Okay, thanks, David. And just to finish off with a nice, easy, soft, cuddly question. Who is paying for all this research? We've seen with renewable energy that the present users are effectively funding the process. Who's paying for all this?
I'll take that one, to be honest. It's actually something I'm going to pin on to the end of David's one. Is that how integrated is this? And you really need to look at the funders that we're talking about here. So once we've got buy-in from the council, the funders are actually Scottish Government and the UK Government through UKRI. So that shows you the level of buy-in that we have, that we need to make this net zero carbon journey, and that this is a part of it. Net zero carbon aviation is a big part of it. So I suppose there's two. The part of the last question is that there is a lot of buy-in at governmental level to get an integrated strategy, and we're just a part of it. The second bit is that really it's government funding. Future Flight Challenge is where we are getting our funding from, but also from Highlands and Islands Airports Limited, which is Scottish Government funding.
So it's not adding anything to me ticket to Inverness.
No, the hope is it will reduce your ticket to Inverness. That's the eventual plan.
Well, hallelujah for that. I love that. I'm going a couple of weeks, so that'll be great. Gentlemen, listen, thank you very much indeed for coming on, and that's been really, really interesting and super to see some of that graphics and stuff that are really exciting, and the developments that are coming. So thank you very much to David Holden and to Dougie Cook there. Now we're going to be back with another webinar at 4 o'clock, and that is Windracers, and that's Olivia Opperman from the Windracers project, and that was mentioned in the talk that we've just had there. So thank you very much for tuning in, and see you again hopefully at 4 p.m. when we're going to have that Windracer talk. Thank you very much, and goodbye for now.